All right, so I am recording this session. I am going to go ahead and just do a quick mute all you guys. We have a little bit of background noise. That being said, I want to welcome you again and absolutely encourage you at any point to unmute your microphone if you'd like to ask a question or share something, share your own experience, just chime in any way. I would love that. If you'd like to use the chat to communicate, feel free to do that as well. Cameras on, cameras off, doesn't matter to me at all. The fact that, it is 3:30 on the East Coast, 2:30 here in Illinois where I am, and you guys are tuning into a webinar. It speaks to who you are as an educator, so make yourselves comfortable and do whatever is best for you. For those of you that have said hello in the chat, thank you for doing that. I'm so happy that you're here. Also, Kelly, both Kellys that chimed in the chat. So welcome. You guys, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just kind of get us started. There, I have a slideshow that I don't know about you, but I kind of make my presentations similar to how I used to make sub plans when I was in the classroom. My subs would almost always write me a little note and say, we didn't get to half of what you left us. But that's always because, I want to make sure I have enough ideas to share during the time. So Laura, welcome. I'm happy that you're here again today. Laura is my Illinois friend who's been coming to these sessions, and I love it. So you guys, I'm recording this session. We'll put it on our YouTube channel. My name is Avra, and let's get started. So this was just the description for the session. We're looking, we're gonna kind of, oh, you guys, this is a bad copy and paste. This is not the right shortened URL. Sorry about that. I'll change that. We're looking for ways to be able to support our diverse learners today. And we're going to kind of focus in, with the idea of UDL, which is Universal Design for Learning. UDL is a framework that has really helped me over the years understand how we can support kids. And I want to start out by just telling all of you that I am not a special educator. I'm a general ed teacher that I've taught third grade, I taught kindergarten, I taught K through 8 technology for years. I've taught at the high school level in the summers. I work with pre-service teachers at a local college near my home where I'm adjunct faculty. So I've done a lot of things in the general ed world, but I've worked with special educators over the years who have taught me so much. And so while I just want to, be really transparent and let you know that, I'm not a special educator. So some of you may be, and if you want to chime in and share, your own experiences and piggyback on the things that I share, I would love that. But I think what's neat is that special educators are so good with strategies and tools for supporting, our students that are, working with different disabilities. Just the diversity in our classrooms, the learner variability is huge. And I've learned so much from my special educator friends over the years. Specifically, I have to give credit to Rosie McQuillan, who is, she used to be a full-time instructor with us, and now she consults with us. She was my special ed gal, and she has a master's degree in assistive technology. So she really helped me realize how a lot of the things that I was doing, and then I just kind of innately knew to do, she made me understand kind of the science behind it and why it was working for students. And so we're going to use UDL, we're going to do a little introduction to it here at the beginning, and then just jump into the strategies, especially some of the accessibility tools that Chrome provides that are either Chromebooks or the Chrome browser, some extensions, and then just, some strategies for kids. So thank you guys for introducing yourselves in the chat. I have the chat up where I can see it, and I'm going to go ahead and just redo my little Zoom screens real quick, and that way anybody that does have their camera on, I can see us. So all right, so when we're looking at differentiated instruction, I always kind of go back to this Tomlinson definition, looking for ways that we can allow students to make sense of ideas, taking in information, making sense of ideas, and expressing what they're learning, but in different ways, different avenues. For me, it really comes down to that idea of voice and choice and flexibility. So let's dive in and talk just a little bit about universal design, right? So there are 3 main kind of tenets of universal design for learning, and they are multiple means of engagement, multiple means of representation, and then multiple means of action and expression. So diving into each one a little bit further, multiple means of engagement is the why of learning. So it's that idea of how can we get our kids engaged and motivated and excited to learn something new. It's that recruiting interest. And then once we've recruited the interest, trying to sustain that effort and attention, and then working with kids on self-regulation. So I think, this is obviously one of the keys. Like if we don't do this, then, we're going to struggle with our kids. I have a 5th grade son who struggles with executive functioning. He struggles with some ADD. He struggles a little bit with some dysgraphia. And so he's got a lot of things that he's working on. And I'll tell you right now, if he's not excited about something, he kind of tunes out. And so I've learned a lot from him. While I can imagine that as a teacher, he probably is frustrating. He's also someone who, when he's excited about something, he's highly verbal and very creative. And so he's been kind of he's been my own teacher. So multiple means of engagement, the why of learning, let's get them engaged. And then multiple means of representation. This stuff, you guys, with some simple tweaks we can do some things that are really powerful for kids. So this is the what of learning. And this is really about how teachers are going to display information, literally display information like font and size and contrast. And we'll talk about some of that, but then also things like, hey, can we, link illustrations or symbols or colors or images to text and to concepts in order to give kids an opportunity to take in information in different ways and be able to, increase recall and things like that? Can we create opportunities for graphic organizers or concept maps, mind maps, those kinds of things, looking for ways for kids to be able to solve problems and organize information in different ways, things like checklists or sticky notes, those kinds of things. So we'll look at some tools and strategies and possibilities for that as we go through our hour together today. And then lastly, multiple means of action and expression. And this is the how of learning. So this is kids doing things, right? So, thinking about how are they inputting information? How are they inputting text? Can we allow them to use their voice? Literally or figuratively, but things like voice input, text to speech to text, that kind of stuff. But then this also plays into the executive functioning, things like developing study skills and strategies and setting goals, and then always looking for ways that we can work on the executive functioning, the self-regulation part of it. Okay, so from my perspective, when we look at this was a really nice graphic that kind of summed it up for me. So, hey, what are teachers going to provide? And then what is that going to give our kids? So flexible ways of presenting lesson content. It's going to give our kids options for how they receive content, right? And then flexible options for student engagement. So letting them make some choices and getting them interested and allowing them to choose that which they're interested in. And then flexible methods of expression and assessment. And that's giving kids choices as well, like thinking about how they demonstrate their learning. So, when I look at this, here's what I see. Flexible options, choices, right? So from my perspective, it's really about that. It's about teachers needing to be flexible and give kids options and choices as much as possible. And I think this is where, if we can embrace this idea, we're going to do ourselves a service and we're going to do a service for our kids. Okay. So we want to look at, throughout the learning process and all the different stages of it, how can we support our learners? And so the way that I've kind of got it started is let's look at, digital reading. So, we're here today to talk about tech skills. Now, I'm not saying at all that kids shouldn't be reading in books. By all means, I love books. You guys, I walk into Barnes and Noble and I can smell them and I love them. But I'll tell you what, this 47-year-old who hasn't quite embraced the fact that she probably needs readers or maybe needs to head to the eye doctor does this a lot on my pages. Have you ever done that? Like, have you been looking at a picture or a magazine and kind of gone like this and wished that you could zoom in? Like, I do that because I need the text to be bigger. So with digital reading, you know, can come some challenges, but also there's a lot of supports that can be built in. And there's a lot that we can provide for our kids that maybe when they're reading an actual physical book or paper that, you know, they're not going to have. So let's jump in and talk to begin with about just the Chromebook accessibility. Okay, so for those of you who have students that have Chromebooks, and I've got other stuff besides just Chromebook stuff, but let's look at what's possible here. So we want to think about font style. Okay, we're going to talk about that a lot today, and background color and the size of text, because when we do this, we're allowing students to make choices and personalize this, customize this environment for them, for what works best for them. And I absolutely will share. Ashley, I'm glad that you asked. I'm going to give you these slides 100%. You're going to have them all. And there are links and stuff in, and examples and templates and all of that. So you'll want them. So I'll definitely give them to you at the end. Yeah, no problem. I'm glad you asked, because I meant to say that at the beginning. So thank you. So you guys, you know, to begin with, you in any Chrome browser, whether you're on a Chromebook or whether you're on just a, you know, a PC or a Mac or whatever you're on, you can increase the text size and you can change the font style. Okay, so what you're going to do that, and I'll do this live in just a second, but we're going to head up to like that 3-dot menu at the top right. Okay, and yeah, absolutely. Let me just share them right now with you. Sorry about that, guys. I just saw a message that said, hey, I'm going to need to leave. And so I will throw them in there. It's probably going to open up to this page, but you've got the link then. So you guys, this idea of font and style and size, this helped my mom. My mom only sees out of one eye. Okay. And so when I showed her this, that she could increase the font size, it helped her so much. So let me just do a quick live demo of this. If we go up to the 3-dot menu in the top right, okay, and then we go down to settings, we're going to open up this window. Okay, so this is going to happen on a Chromebook or just anywhere that you're in the Chrome browser. If you go over on the left-hand side to appearance, all right, this is what you're going to see. So let me, yeah, it will let me zoom a little bit here. So look, we've got font size right here, okay, and we've got custom fonts and we've got page zoom. So the font size, you know, it's on medium by default, but hey, look what happens if I choose large. Okay, or if I go and choose very large, it just makes everything bigger. So then that might be a really, you know, really great help for some people or some of your students. Okay, so this is something that I definitely recommend doing with a child, right? Because you're not going to necessarily know what they need, but showing them, kind of teaching them the tools, even at a young age. If you can teach them to do this, then you're, you know, teaching them to fish, right? You're empowering them to be able to make these choices. Also, oops, I clicked before I talked. I'm going to go to customize fonts right here. Okay, so if I do this, then we can come in and we can take a look at, you know, the font size, and then we can also take a look at the different types of fonts. Okay, so if we drop this down, you can choose what font your browser is in. And this can be important. I'm going to talk about this more in a little bit, but there's a difference between something called a serif font and a sans serif font. So sans serif means no curly cues. Serifs are like little tails. And if you look at, let me come back here and show you. Let me go to a different slide here. If we look at the difference between this top yellow box and the bottom yellow box, okay, this is a sans serif font. So the letters are straight up and down. And the serif fonts are the ones that have all these kind of extra little tails, and sometimes they're curly, okay? And what'll happen is some students that are dealing with visual tracking issues or dyslexia are going to do better with the sans serif fonts. And there are actually some additional fonts like OpenDyslexic that I'll mention later that are even better for kids that are suffering from dyslexia. But letting your kids pick and letting them choose which one makes more sense for them, including, you know, the size as well as the font style, is going to help them. You know, it's going to impact their speed and their accuracy and their focus. So a lot of times when students are struggling readers, they're going to do better with a larger font. They're going to do better with more space, more white space in between. So we'll talk about line spacing and things like that as well. Okay, so So I'll show you some more examples of this in just a minute, and we'll look at some tools for how we can change some of that. But remember that just in the Chrome browser itself, you can start to customize some of this, okay? And once you kind of set it in there, it stays. And then you can always change it if you need to. So, you can kind of figure once you work with each of your students to get it set up the way it makes sense for them, then they're gonna, they'll be able to, it'll stay the same for them until they change it. So then when we think about like auditory accessibility features, whenever kids can hear things at the same time as see them, for those students that are able to hear, of course, then it's going to help with comprehension, right? So we know our students that are, strong readers and they can read fiction, nonfiction without a problem. And then we're going to know our students that are going to do better if they're reading at the same time as hearing it. I am actually one of those people. I'm a strong reader with fiction, but when it comes to nonfiction, if I have to read something to understand it, I find myself reading it aloud just because somehow hearing it at the same time as seeing it helps me. Okay, it's kind of that multi-sensory experience of being able to see it and hear it at the same time. Okay, it's going to help me understand it better. So these heavy text slides, guys, are just here for you as a support later. Okay, I'm not obviously going to read these to you. I know that the typical presentation is supposed to be a lot of images and just some short bullet points. I don't make presentations like that. I don't believe in them. I believe in having a resource for you for after our time, because we're only getting an hour together today. So I'd rather you, go off with something that, thank you, Ashley. I'd rather you go off with something that, you can come back and read, and because you're not going to remember everything I said. And you've been with me for about 15 minutes or so, and you've already realized that I talk really fast, right? So this is just here for you. Okay, so let's jump back into like, hey, Chromebook, right? What can we do? So there's something called select to speak, all right? So it's that text to speech. So it's the Chromebook Reader, and it can read almost all of the on-screen text. And you're gonna find that, and I'll show you some, I'm not logged into a Chromebook today, but I have some screenshots for you. Of the accessibility system menu in Chrome. And what it does is it down in the, this would be like, if you're used to Chromebooks, this is like the right-hand side, bottom right of your screen, over where you can see your battery and the clock. It's going to put it here kind of into this little shelf. And so then kids can select any text that's on the screen and then hit that button and they're going to hear it. Okay. So, so this is kind of what it looks like when you're in the accessibility screen or menu, I guess, in the Chromebook. You're going to see a lot of different tools. Okay. And I'm going to kind of explain some of them. Here's the select to speak, and you can just click on any one of them. And then when it's turned on, it's going to have like a little green check mark circle thing. And it'll not only read some websites for you, but it does some PDFs, and it'll do docs and forms and slides and things like that for kids. So there are ways you can customize it. Okay, so you can jump in and you can dig a little deeper if you want to. This is one of those things where if you work with certain students, you might take the time to sit down with them, maybe during a station rotation. Maybe one of the stations is you as the teacher, and they're going to come and they're going to work on customizing these things, because guys, you can customize things like the rate and the pitch and the volume. And that way then kids can figure out what works best for them in terms of them understanding that spoken language. So they can choose that. You can help them as they do. And then this is just some additional information. So, when you go to jump on a Chromebook and you're playing around with this, you guys can come back to these slides and it'll give you some more information. And then if you have any trouble at all, my email address is on the first slide of the slideshow too, so you can always email me. Kelly, do you have a question?
Yes.
Right.
So do you happen to know if the settings that you change on the Chromebook, not the ones in the browser, but the ones that are actually in the Chromebook set, those apply to apps that are installed on the Chromebook itself?
Yeah.
So with a vision impaired student, if you were to change the Chromebook settings for the high contrast showed up or things like that, and we install an app from their Play Store or whatever it's called, would those settings apply to that, or do you have to change it within the individual app itself?
I think when you do it on the Chromebook, it's going to do it it's going to be ubiquitous throughout the entire Chromebook. I want to double check on that before I tell you for sure. So if I can dig into that for you, but my experience has been that when you change the accessibility features and settings on the Chromebook itself, that it doesn't matter what you kind of install or whatever, it's gonna work.
Okay. I have a follow-up question.
Okay.
Do you know if it works with secure browsers? So like for testing. So like we in our state, we have state testing called MCAS, and it is a secure browser that they can't interact with anything else on the computer. Do you happen to know if it applies to that as well?
I don't. That's a great question, but I do know someone I can ask. I will ask my colleague Rosie, unless anybody else in here knows. But yeah, that's a great question. I haven't had the experience of getting to try it, obviously. But that's a fantastic question and obviously a really pertinent one. So would you mind, Kelly, I'm going to just throw my email address into the chat. Okay. And if you wouldn't mind just shooting me an email that says, Avra, I'm the one that asked the question, and that way I can reply to you after I do a little digging, if that's okay.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Anybody else have a question, as long as we kind of paused? And I'm so glad that she asked the question, and I welcome those anytime. And like, as you can tell, you guys, if I don't know the answer, I will dig for you and find out. So I'm just glancing over at the names and everybody that's here. And I just want to stop really quick because I know a lot of you have joined since I've been talking. So my name's Avra. Obviously, we are talking about diverse learners today and differentiation and the kind of the Chromebooks and Chrome browser and ways that we can support students. So welcome if you didn't hear me say that. I am recording this. So if you got here, a couple minutes in, you can always watch the beginning. All right. So I'm going to keep us going. Just another quick thought, you guys, and this isn't necessarily an accessibility feature of Chrome, but it's just a thought process in terms of Google Classroom. I think sometimes teachers may not realize that the attachments that you put into a Google Classroom assignment can be a video or they can be an audio recording. So, you can use any kind of tool. Now, my go-to audio recorder up until last Wednesday was Mote, okay, M-O-T-E. It's a Google Chrome extension. Some of you may be familiar with it. It allows you to record right within many programs. However, I got an email from Mote, just like everyone else did, that said that they're kind of going with more of a paid version, I guess. And it used to be that their paywall was, hey, you can only record for 30 seconds. Okay. But you could make as many recordings as you wanted. Well, now I think it's starting in January, they are making it so that you can only have up to 20 for the month, which is not enough. So, I have it in here and I mention it because it is such a great tool, but now it's paid. So I hate mentioning paid tools. I think it's $39 for the year. It is one that it's one that I would pay for, but I don't like mentioning it. But to record audio, in other ways, you can do that. You just have to get your recording, your MP3 file that it creates. You have to get it up to your Google Drive, and then you can put it into slides, or then you can put it into Classroom. But like this program here, guys, onlinevoicerecorder.com. Is just a really simple way of recording audio. Okay, so you can just click here. So what I always tell folks is like, ignore the ads and stuff up here. I always just kind of scroll, and that way I just have this blue bar with the red button. It doesn't use a sign in or anything. You don't have to worry about logging in. I think you can, but I never do. You just click here. And then you could give a set of instructions to students, and that way students can hear the instructions as well as read them, for those students obviously who can hear. And then when you hit stop, all right, the only options you have are to kind of trim it. So you could get rid of some dead space at the beginning, or you could get rid of dead space at the end, and then you hit save. Okay, now what this does, if you notice when I hit save just now, follow my mouse to the bottom left, it creates just this little MP3 file that's called like record. Okay. And in order to use this and put it into Google Classroom or put it into slides, you'd have to upload it to Google Drive. All right. And you'd have to put it in a folder that's, set with the sharing settings of anyone with the link can view, or anyone with the link can listen in this case. But it's something that's, worth mentioning, because sometimes teachers forget or don't realize that when you're creating an assignment in Google Classroom, you could create an audio clip, or you could create a video clip using maybe something like Screencastify. That's going to allow then you to be able to explain these instructions for students in a variety of ways. And so this can add support and differentiation for your students. You know, if you also have students that are hard of hearing or who are deaf, you know, you might even create or find some videos that have the closed captions and things like that in there as well. So just something to mention, you know, it's not necessarily an accessibility feature of Chrome, but it's a strategy that teachers can use. So let's talk for a little bit about some Google Chrome extensions that will support reading. Okay, so going back to kind of what we started talking about a few minutes ago, there is a wonderful extension, guys, called it's called Use Immersive Reader on websites. I think it's the unofficial version of something called the Immersive Reader. The Immersive Reader is actually a Microsoft tool. Okay, so you'll see it in Flipgrid, you'd see it in Word, you'd see it in OneNote or PowerPoint. It's fabulous. Okay, so let me just show you it for those of you that aren't familiar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just go to a website that students might be reading. Okay, and this extension lives up here in my extensions bar, but honestly, you don't do anything with it up here. You do something with it with the right click. Okay, so I'm going to scroll a little bit and I'm going to show you what I mean. What kids need to do is they would highlight a section of text. And then when it's highlighted, they're going to right click. Now, that's a skill in and of itself. So this is something that you definitely need to take the time to work with your students on, because I know when I worked with my kids on Chromebooks, the 2-finger tap is the right click, but it took some practice. Now, kids pick up things a lot faster than adults sometimes. So just show it to them and let them practice a little bit and they'll get it. But then what's going to happen, guys, is they're going to come on down to about, you know, maybe halfway down or so to where it says, help me read this. Okay. And when I click on it, it opens up in this like immersive reader. Okay. And this is the immersive reader. So there are a lot of aspects to this and it's worth diving into. To begin with, if you notice right at the bottom here, it can be read to us.
A herd of antelope moves slowly through the tall grass.
Then next to that, we've got settings. So just like we talked about before with some of the Chromebook accessibility features, we've got the option to change to a male voice. We've got the option to slow the voice down or increase the speed of the voice.
Grass. Suddenly a cheetah leaps from.
Okay, so that's wonderful to begin with. But then if you look up at the top right of the screen, you're going to see 3 different icons. The first one is text preferences. So this is some of that stuff we were talking about before, like, hey, we can make the text smaller, we can make the text larger. So working with kids to know how to do this themselves is the key here, okay, even little guys. And then like making sure that the increased line spacing is turned on. This is an on-off button. So we know that our little guys, our pre-readers, our early readers, and our struggling readers are going to do better with more white space in between the words as well as in between the lines, okay? And then here are our different types of fonts. So right now we're in a sans serif font. Here's a serif font, okay? And this is another sans serif font. So those are all possibilities for changes and tweaks. And then you guys, there's the background color. So we know also that when we've got that bright white background and the black text, that's going to cause visual fatigue after a while. And so softening that background often helps students. You may have some students that prefer it like this or prefer a color, you know, so giving them this voice and choice, empowering them to make these choices can be awesome. So that all happens here in the AA. If we go to the middle one, okay, sometimes my reading specialist friends kind of go a little crazy here because this is exciting. We can say, hey, look, all nouns are going to be purple, all verbs are going to be red. So if we want to use this as a teaching tool, we could kind of break down parts of speech and language in that way. And then the third icon over here at the top right, you guys, this is amazing. Look, we can do line focus. So as it's being read
from its hiding place, and the animals zig and zag across the.
You know, it really focuses kids as they're listening and reading as it goes along. And you can see it's highlighting the words as it goes. So that's an on-off button as well. And then there's a picture dictionary. Okay. So if there's an image associated with it, kids can click and they can see that. So then they can hear an individual word
Antelope.
read as well. All right. And then lastly, and maybe the most powerful thing of all, is that we can translate language also. Okay. So if you've got students who are English language learners, if you come on down and put it into their native language, you can do it by the word, or you can do it by the document. If I click on by document, this entire thing gets rewritten in French.
Un troupeau d'antilopes se déplace lentement à travers les hautes herbes.
And all the other stuff applies. I know, Kelly, right? Where has this been my whole life? She said. I agree. I did backflips when this came out, because I had first found this in Flipgrid, and then and I knew it was in those Microsoft tools, but now it's here. So it takes a little bit to teach kids to use it, right? So going back, what I did is I used the back button that was up here to get back to my website. So it definitely, if I'm a kindergarten teacher at heart, so I'm thinking, okay, little guys, using the trackpad, highlighting a section of text, I might teach them to double click or triple click, because a double click is going to do a word, but guys, a triple click is going to do that whole paragraph. Okay, so then right clicking, triple click, and then right click. So it's we have to practice here, and we have to give them time to practice. But then when you do it, you get this amazing, amazing support system. So be aware that that's there. Be aware that it's in Flipgrid too. It's up at the top right of Flipgrid. It looks like a little book, kind of. There's a little icon for it. So, so that's one of those things that I think is so awesome. This is a slide that's kind of breaks it down. If you want to share this with anyone, you can. It kind of breaks down like what all the different things are here and what it helps with. Okay, and this is a link to be able to get it. It's definitely something that should be pushed out and needs to be in all the kids' browsers if you're going to use it. Okay. So that one's my favorite. I kind of start with the best first, but the Mercury Reader has a wonderful set of tools as well. What Mercury Reader does is it clears the page of superfluous stuff. Okay, so let's go back and look here at this wonderful National Geographic for Kids page. You guys, we know National Geographic Kids is a great website, but hey, look. We have literally blinking advertisements, and we have menus across the top, and look, they say videos and they say games. And if you've got this on your board at the front of the room, or you've got kids on individual devices and they're going to be distracted. I'm distracted. I'm 47, haven't formally been diagnosed with any kind of attention deficit disorders, but I get distracted by this stuff. Well, then that's when we want to use the Mercury Reader. So the Mercury Reader is this little rocket ship. So if you follow my mouse up to the top right of my screen right here, and I click here, it's going to get rid of all that superfluous stuff. No more menus, no more blinking ads. We just get the text mainly. And sometimes you might end up with like one or two pertinent images, but a lot of times it's just text. And then it's hard to see, but up here, the top right, there's a settings gear. And so in here, we can open up these same kind of options. So we can change the text size, small, medium, and large. We can change it to serif fonts versus sans serif fonts, and we can go light and dark. So this isn't going to read it to them, but it is going to allow them to read in an environment that works for them. Okay. And when you're done with that, you guys, you just come back, like, I don't know if you can see, but right here, it says, click here to exit the Mercury Reader view. So if you click on that, it just takes you back to the website then. Okay. So, taking the time to teach kids to utilize these extensions can be bang for your buck in terms of time, right? I know it takes the time to teach them, but it can be wonderful for them to start to, learn how to customize these digital environments, because it can be a powerful way to support them. So I'm just looking at the chat and I don't see any questions popping up yet. I'm going to kind of keep going, guys. If you're familiar, you may be familiar already with OpenDyslexic, but what it is it's an extension also that's going to take all the web pages and kind of override the fonts that are on the page and put it into this font. So this is an O in OpenDyslexic, and you can see what they are is they're weighted at the bottom, which helps with the reversals and the flipping that the symbols do, the letters and symbols do for someone who has dyslexia. Okay, so that be aware that that's a possibility for you as well, for those students who need it. And then natural reader is similar to the immersive reader. It has some similar features. I'll let you explore it. What's nice about it is that it works in conjunction with Mercury Reader. So if you've got kids like clearing the page of all the superfluous nonsense, you know, and they want to be able to hear it read as well, they can. So what I suggest is kind of exploring these yourself and playing around with them, seeing what you like, and then the ones that make sense for you, showing them to your kids, and then letting them choose. Because again, we want to focus on the fact that it's really about students' voice and choice and flexibility, and not all kids using the same thing, right? So one last one is line height adjuster. Okay, just another wonderful option that will allow the line height. So making it so that the reading experience can be adjusted in terms of that. So let me look. Kelly, do you know of any extensions that can modify the reading level of the text? I don't know of an extension. I know of Newsella, obviously, but Newsella has moved away from having a lot of free tools and it's become a paid tool, something that, you know, that schools subscribe for. And what it is it's a series of articles, you know, it's thousands of articles, nonfiction mainly, that can be leveled. But I don't know, Kelly, unfortunately, of one that will level it. If I find anything, you know, I would build it into these slides and let you know. But yeah, I don't know of an extension that does that. So sorry, I don't have a better answer. And then Kendra said, not sure if anyone asked about online textbooks and how. Yeah, so that's a great question in terms of whether or not some of these extensions work with the online textbooks. And I would just say to install them and try, because I don't have access to them. So I'm not sure, except when I get in and work with a specific district, which I do sometimes. So I'm not sure how it works in that testing environment, and I'm not really sure how it works in specific textbooks. Sometimes I have found, though, that certain programs, you know, will build in accessibility features, and you'll find these kinds of features, you won't even need an extension for them. You might find them built into the software. So if you do want to look into that, you know, you might do a Google search, like say you're using Houghton Mifflin or something like that. You might just type in, you know, in a Google search, the name of your publisher and then accessibility features. Unless, of course, you can check with your tech person at your school and ask them to give a call to your salesperson, you know, who might know some of those features, because sometimes it's built in. Have a high school student that has an option for an e-read book that is not so good, right? So that's, you know, that's the problem, is that sometimes some of this stuff is built in and it's great, and sometimes not, you know. So yeah, great questions, you guys. Thanks for asking them. All right, so then, you know, this was taking in information and looking at ways that kids can, you know, read and that kind of thing. But now let's look for a little bit about, you know, kids creating, and what, as they're inputting information and as they're doing things, what kinds of strategies can we use to support them? So beginning again with just Chromebook accessibility. Like I said before, you guys, this is just kind of, this is an informational slide that's here for you that you can take a look at later. We'll jump in and start talking about what are some possibilities here, right? So in the Chromebook, in the accessibility menu, we've got lots of options. And I would just say, get in there, take a little bit of time and play, okay? Because that's kind of what I did to figure all this out. I worked with my colleague Rosie, and we just played around with it. So, you know, things like enlarging the mouse cursor. Again, I go back to my mom, who only sees out of one eye. This helps her, because I can't tell you, like, you know, she'll just be moving the mouse around and then she loses it on the screen. She just can't find it. And I'll say, Mom, go up to the right. And even when she's moving it, have you ever had that happen? Like, you just can't find the mouse. So this is nice, because it'll just increase the entire pointer of it. Okay. So that's one thing to know. And then there's also like a highlight, where when you're like, it'll highlight the mouse cursor. When you click, it'll do like a red circle around it. And then you guys also, you can take a look at this. Okay, so you can see, like, as they're clicking, the little circles and rounded rectangles that are popping up, you can kind of see this. So that way, as kids are maybe filling out forms or things like that, they're able to have that focus and be able to see, where they're clicking and where to go and that kind of thing. So sometimes it helps with the distraction, focus, but also it can just help with you figuring out how to navigate these kind of digital environments. We expect a lot. And again, this is something I'm not sure of in terms of a secure browser and a testing environment. I'm going to try to get to the bottom of that, but I'm not sure how to, but I'll try to figure it out for you. So just be aware that this stuff exists, including you guys. There's an on-screen keyboard on the Chromebooks. So sometimes you may have students that would benefit from this. I had a student one time that broke his finger. And so he just did better, using the trackpad and the on-screen keyboard to kind of type things out because he wasn't able to use the keyboard as well. Okay, so just be aware that this is here. These are all features that when you turn them on, they show up down here in this shelf. Okay, they call that the shelf on the Chromebook. So there's just more information in here for you about the on-screen keyboard. The on-screen keyboard, guys, comes with some additional features, including an emoji keyboard, okay, with a draw to type. So you can actually, you could write the letter A and it'll turn it into an A for you. It'll have a mini keyboard, so it wouldn't take up so much of the screen if you want to turn that on. And then the dictation tool I'll talk about too, but that then allows you to dictate in and have that speech to text feature that my son can't live without. So let's talk about that. The dictation tool is another one. Like if I just zoom back real quick here and show you, should be on here. Well, I won't take our time, but it's in there in that accessibility menu. And guys, it just gives us this. Okay, it's going to give us this little microphone, and anywhere, any text box anywhere that a kid can access, he or she can talk in. So this is how Cameron got through Zoom last year when he was remote during the pandemic. He'd be in a Zoom call with his teacher and needed to head off to the restroom or something, and it would take him forever to type, may I go to the restroom? So as soon as he came home and he brought his Chromebook home, first thing I did was turn on the dictation tool for him. And he learned really quickly. He went into Seesaw, he went into Google Docs, he went into Google Slides, and he could anywhere he'd be able to dictate and have it come in. And what was interesting about this is that when he was doing it in Google Docs, he learned rapidly that, it doesn't always type exactly what you wanted it to. So if any of you've ever used this on your phones, you know that, besides autocorrect, sometimes it thinks we say a different word. So then that was something he had to learn. He had to absolutely go through and reread it. And we laughed when it was like something silly. He was like, that's not what I meant. But so it's a whole thought process and a whole lesson in and of itself to say, hey, you can use these tools, but then you're going to have to go back and read and make sure that it makes sense, right? You can't turn in something that, you don't even reread. And so it's an awesome tool, but it comes with lessons, right? So we need to be able to do that with kids. But this is wonderful for our students that have so much inside them. But then there are barriers to being able to express their ideas. This is Cameron for sure. He's been talking since he was 18 months. I swear. He's a really verbal kid, but you put a pencil in his hand or a keyboard under his fingers and you're going to get very short sentences, very unsophisticated language. And I know he knows so much more, but he's not willing to take the time to write it. So be aware that the dictation tool is fantastic on the Chromebooks. Guys, there's also a closed caption tool in Slides. So, if you were, or an educator, or a teacher that you work with, if you're a special educator, were to create a video and want to, talk through a set of slides, you might turn on this tool. So down here, okay, so this is a screenshot of it, but I'm actually in Slides. So I'll go down here and I can turn on closed captions. Let me go to caption preferences. And I'll turn on English. And now as I speak, it does a pretty good job of transcribing that which I'm talking about. And so I'm just going to turn it off, but be aware that that's there for creating videos, as well as maybe just if there are teachers, speaking to slides in the classroom, if they want to turn that on, they could. Okay. So be aware that that's there. So let's just stop for a second. Okay, I always kind of build these in so I don't forget to stop. We've got about 15 minutes left. Does anybody have a question? Does anybody want to share something in the chat? Something that you're thinking about right now, something that's resonated with you? You guys have kind of already done that, but I just want to give us a chance to do it. All right, I promised at the beginning that if you wanted to just sit back and relax, you didn't have to feel like you had to interact. I know you've all worked all day, so I'll just keep plowing through, but keep your questions coming if you want. So, oh, thanks, Deb. What did you just say? I think many of the programs you share will also help with, with English as a second language. I actually did a session on ESL kids last night, and what day is it? On Tuesday night, I guess. And yeah, in fact, some of the things I'm going to show right now came from that presentation. The idea of linking language to images is a big one too, I think. So that's the perfect segue into like my idea of voice and choice. I think that anytime we're working to differentiate in the classroom, you know, we know that we've got diverse learners. We know that we've got kids that are struggling in one way or another, but then we've got our quote, like regular ed kids, and providing them these same options, it's going to support them as well. And so, you know, whether they're, kids who are, English language learners or just regular ed kids who, could use some extra support, or anyone, I think that's huge. So when we think about voice and choice, the opportunities that voice and choice provide, gives kids ownership. It gives them a sense of autonomy and independence, which, when they feel that intrinsically motivates them, and it hopefully reduces their anxiety. I think that there's a lot of anxiety out there with kids. I know adults, everyone, we all are feeling this way. We've got this global pandemic that persists. We've got a lot of social unrest in our country. There's just issues, and not to mention all the stuff that's going on in kids' homes. So when we give kids back a chance to control their environment or feel some sense of control and some sense of choice, we lessen their anxiety. Think about anything that makes you anxious or fearful. And if you boil it down, it's going to be that you can't control the situation. Okay. My best friend's afraid of wasps. She's afraid she can't control the situation. She's afraid she'll get stung. I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid that I can't control the situation because the plane might crash, right? So think about giving voice and choice as a way of lessening student anxiety. Okay. It also is going to help with their focus. This is Cameron. If you give him something he's excited about, or find a way, even if the content's not his favorite thing, but if you let him express himself in the way that he wants to do it, he'll be focused, he'll be excited, he'll be interested. And that helps with his self-regulation. It helps him with those executive functioning skills. Okay. So what teachers need to remember with voice and choice is that it's not about just, willy-nilly letting kids choose whatever they want. It's about you designing activities, the teacher designing activities with the must-dos, and then trying to find ways to weave voice and choice into those must-dos. Okay, so maybe letting them choose their pace, or letting them choose where they do something, or letting them choose how they express themselves. Okay, so that's kind of the things that we want to think about. So what kinds of voice and choice can we offer? I think we want to think about video or audio, letting them speak in, maybe they're writing, or maybe they're linking things to pictures, those kinds of ideas. So one strategy is this voice typing in Google Docs. It's very similar to the dictation tool on the Chromebook. If you have kids using PCs or MacBooks, and you don't, maybe you're not using the dictation tool that's on the Chromebook, this is right here in tools. Okay. And you're going to go right down to voice typing if you haven't ever seen this before. So when you do this, you get a little floating toolbar. Okay. And it can be put wherever you'd like to put it. And then you literally click here. And when you do, you're able to dictate, and it does a pretty good job of transcribing everything you're saying, period. So you can see that, it does a pretty good job. Now, this is one of the things, like when I was teaching Cam, I'm able to do this. I do it on a regular basis. I do it on my phone on a regular basis. So I speak clearly and slowly enough that it's able to figure it out. When kids do it at first, it doesn't go as well. So they definitely need practice doing it. But, this is something to consider allowing students to do. you know, to be able to express themselves. It does work in slides, guys, but it doesn't work up in a text box in slides. So in slides, you would have to do your typing down in the speaker notes. So you would come to tools here and choose voice type speaker notes. And then it's going to be that same kind of idea. And now I can speak and it will transcribe what I am saying, period. Okay, so if you've got older kids, I've seen older kids figure this out and then they're able to do a quick cut and paste, you know, Control X, come on up into here and paste it in, that kind of thing. Little guys, that's going to be too many steps for them, but you know, be aware that it's here. Now the dictation tool on the Chromebook will allow you to be right inside of a text box and actually speak in, and that'll work for them. So I'm going to close that right now. Another idea, you guys, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there is a checklist option now in Google Docs. So when I think about this, I'm a big list maker, okay? And I used to use lists with my kids all the time. You know, they had assignment notebooks when I was a third grade teacher, and we'd make a list of the things they needed to do. Well, you can do that for your students here. So if I kind of zoom in, let me show you right next to the bullets tool or the number tool, there's a checklist tool now. And what's amazing about this is that if let's make me a list for this weekend, laundry, dishes. Okay, these are actually two things that I'm never going to be able to cross off, unfortunately, because they never end. Wrap the presents, you know, this kind of a thing, right? So what's cool about this is that if you put a check mark in this, you know, it's live, like it actually puts the little check mark in the box. It's not just like a bullet that's a box, and it puts a line through it. So, you know, one idea might be if teachers are using Google Classroom, they might create a to-do list for the week for students and then push a copy out to every student in the class and let them, you know, go through and check off the boxes when they're done. So this might help with some students, you know, our kids that need that focus, the help with executive functioning, the help with study skills and organizational skills, you know, those kinds of kids. So, that's just another, you know, just another idea to kind of throw at you here. And then, excuse me, the Explore tool. So the Explore tool is, in my experience, vastly underutilized. This is something you can find in slides or in Google Docs. If I'm here in Google Docs, let me just kind of get rid of what I've got here, and I'm going to close this too, just so it's not in our way. If I go up to Tools and come on down to Explore, that's one way of launching it. The other way is down here in the bottom right, there's an Explore tool button. Watch what happens when I click it. I get this side panel, okay? And here I can search my Google Drive, and I can search the web. Okay, so let me just type in like Martin Luther King Jr., for example. Okay, the first thing it's going to do when it says cloud search, this is searching my Google Drive. So it's finding all of my stuff that's got, you know, that search in it. But I can also go to the web. And so this is where you can start to teach kids to pull some resources together as maybe they're doing a research project, and they can kind of scroll through and take a look at any one of these. If they see something that they think they might want to use, they can click on it and it'll open up, hold on, it'll actually open up a tab and it'll take them to it, okay? Or if you don't want them to do that yet, you can just have them drag it over onto the Google Doc and then maybe start to make a list of possible websites that they can go check out. So that way it kind of keeps them in one tab, which will help again with our kids that, you know, need that focus, okay? The other thing, guys, is that if you notice when I put my mouse right here, there's a little citation tool that's built right here, okay? If I click this, watch what happens. I know it's very small, but it put a little superscript 1 there. And then at the bottom of my page, it puts a little footnote, okay? So now there is a different citation tool that's built into Docs now, okay? So if we go to Tools and we go to Citations, this is much more robust and specific. And so my like 11th grade English teachers are gonna like this one better than this one, because I have heard from those upper level teachers like, hey, that doesn't quite cut it. But it is a possibility, just as we start to teach our younger learners, even like, hey, you know, as you're creating a list of the different websites where you might get some information about your topic, you know, that information is not yours and you need to give credit where credit is due and that kind of thing. So, so that's a great strategy. Kelly, I use the Explore tool with my students to find pictures and it also help them, keep them more on task because, oh my gosh, isn't that the truth? A Google image search is a scary, scary thing. Not only, I was always worried about what they were going to find, but also the rabbit hole that you can fall down. So yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And I'm glad you said that. So if you come over, the third option then is images. And what's neat about the images is that if you grab this, like, and say we bring it in, what happens is they actually link, let me make it a little bit smaller so we can see it more easily. They actually kind of embed the citation right as a link on the image itself. And that way kids are seeing where it came from and are able to give credit and that kind of thing. So thanks for saying that, Kelly, I appreciate it. So I know, you know, this is really about trying to, you know, focus kids and keep them in one spot. And you can do the Explore tool here in slides as well. And then what slides will do also is offer you some different layouts, like for building presentations. They might do some of that as well as the other stuff that I just showed in docs. That all works in slides too. So be aware, play around with the Explore tool. It just seems to get better and better. Okay. You know, just kind of jumping into a different idea, and I know we only have 4 minutes left, but you guys thinking about encouraging students to utilize video and audio whenever possible. So, you know, going from something that's like a written book report to maybe something that looks like this. This is just a slideshow. And unfortunately, I got this idea from a 4th grade classroom and I didn't have permission to show the student example. So I had to redo it. And it's just me, unfortunately, instead of the cute little 4th grader who had been doing it. But, you know, this is just Screencastify and then bringing that video here into a template. And the teacher can create the template, or if you like this idea and you want to use it, there's the link to it down here. Okay, so this is the actual Google slideshow. So you could take it, change it up, make it whatever you want it to be. And then all kids have to do is, you know, get rid of mine, right? And then bring their own Screencastify video in. But, you know, as a teacher, then you can over on the side decide what all they're going to share. So depending on what, you know, literary elements and things like that you're looking at the time, maybe we're focused on setting or we're focused on plot, or maybe it's just to tell it, you know, do a book talk on something that they enjoyed to share with their friends. They can do that as well. So thinking about allowing students to express themselves beyond just the written word, I think it can be really powerful. And then my next example is one with Moat in it. And this is what kind of breaks my heart a little bit because Moat has gone to be more paid. However, when I think about Moat as a teacher tool, I want teachers to be able to create as many as possible, but maybe kids creating the Moats, maybe less than 20 per month is okay for them. So, you know, you might have them do something like this. Maybe there's written language, or maybe it's just them talking about the book. But this is what it looks like when the Moat recordings are in there. The Maze Runner was exciting and fast paced, and I loved almost every moment. I was completely intrigued by the maze. Okay, so you get the idea there. Now you guys keep in mind that you don't have to use Moat. You can just go to Insert Audio. But that being said, you know, you have to have recorded that audio somewhere else. So maybe like that online voice recorder or something would be a possibility. So just keep voice, you know, audio and video in mind as possibilities. You can also do stuff in Flipgrid. Okay, Screencastify lets you record just audio. Flipgrid lets you record just audio. So if you've got students who don't really want to be on video, you could have them record their screen, or you could have them record just the audio with those programs as well. Okay, so guys, we're down to about 2 minutes. I'm going to share one last idea, and then I'm just going to give you these slides. There's tons more stuff in there, but you can look at it at your leisure. And this is the idea of finding ways to link images, embellish words with images, so that way we can help kids make connections, you know. So maybe learning the language, or, you know, looking at things that are tricky, like homophones and things like that, right? So thinking about building these kind of things in either Google Slides or Google Drawings works well. There's also a program called Canva, which, you know, I won't get into today, but if you haven't ever used it, it's free for education. And I have a set of blog posts and videos on how to sign up and how to use it. but what's neat is that you can find a lot of animations in there. You can find videos in there, and they can make, kids could make presentations, or they could make images and share them in a Google presentation. There's lots of possibilities there. And then lastly, I'm just going to show you auto draw. Okay. And this will be the very last thing I show you today. Auto draw is it's a Google experiment, actually, they call it. It's really cool. So let me just clear my screen here and do a new one. So what auto draw does, if you've ever used Book Creator, you may have seen auto draw. What it does is it tries to guess what you're drawing. Okay. So when I draw a flower, you will think that I am 7 because I still draw my flower the exact same way that I did in 2nd grade. And what if you look across the top of the screen, it's trying to guess right now what I'm drawing. Okay. And it didn't really know at first, but now look, hey, it thinks, does she want to draw that? Why, yes, she does. Or maybe it's wondering if I wanted to draw a butterfly or if I wanted to draw a turtle, you know. So this is a neat thing because this allows kids to do some digital drawing, but then it takes it to the next level by creating, you know, an image then for them that they could color in. Okay, so they can have fun coloring it in. That wasn't a great example, but these images then can be exported out and put somewhere else as well. So, you know, giving kids an opportunity to draw some things and then be able to link them to the concepts that they're exploring in class or the language that they're trying to learn or master. Okay, so you guys, there's more stuff in here, but I want to be respectful of your time. Do check it out. There's a cool GIF creator called And Then I Was Like. So this, you know, would make an animated GIF. This one's Brush Ninja, which allows you to, again, create like a little animation that might help kids with certain concepts and things like that. All right. So I'm going to go back up to the top. I'm going to grab the URL, throw it into the chat for all of you. And then, you know, email me if you've got any questions as you go through the slides. We will also put this up on our YouTube channel, and we'll send you the link. So thanks for being here today, and thank you for your service to your students. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, you're welcome, Kelly. Thanks for being here. All right, you guys have a great day and a good holiday season. You're welcome. You're welcome.